The topic for today's afternoon session is going to be on subscriber data monetization. Now, again, I want this to be as interactive as possible, so please feel free to stop me if you think I'm talking about something that you know about, or if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to interrupt as we go along. So as we all know, with the commoditization of connectivity, telecoms are on the cusp of a massive transformation in the way that the business works. People have been talking about the gradual transition of connectivity to content, context, community, and cloud services, the 4Cs as we call it. And all these 4Cs may turn out to be the next big thing for telcos. Right now, it's early stages yet. People still do not know. But all of you in your companies, I'm sure, you have projects on the cloud. You have projects related to how much do you play in content. You have projects related to advertising, as well as social networking in terms of community. How many of you have heard of Telco 2.0? Okay, you may want to check out this website, telco2.0.net. It's extremely popular in Europe. It's based out of London, but it's also started gaining traction in North America. In fact, October 28th and 29th of this year, they're going to have a two-day session in Los Angeles to talk about the next generation business models for telecom. So a lot of people believe that the next generation business model for telecom is going to be about connecting third-party industries, retailers, advertisers, consumer products, media companies, to consumers and businesses, and the telecom being the channel to do that. And you have a lot of examples of service delivery platforms accomplishing that today. You also have examples of telcos being a channel for advertisers, mobile coupons, mobile banking. Telco 2.0 is all about that. So the question that gets asked is, for a telecom company which is largely dependent on voice and data to make this transformation, what do they need to do? We believe that the biggest thing that they need to be focused on from an IT capability perspective, and most of you happen to be CTOs and CIOs. So we're going to be talking about IT capability a lot more in this session than the business model itself, is going to be about analytics on your subscriber data. So today, most of the analytics gives you visibility, so you get nice reports and dashboards. It's mostly done offline. It's data acquisition silos. So I would imagine that most of you have at least 3 to 4 ETL servers in your company, or 3 to 4 data stores. And a lot of it is about technology. I'm sure all of you have Cognos and business objects and Teradata, lots of different kinds of technology in your landscape. But in order to do subscriber analytics effectively, you have to use it as a means, not just to get visibility, but to drive top line. It has to be real time. It's got to be driving action. It's got to be enterprise-wide data services that can be consumed by multiple applications. And finally, the analytics applications need to be responsible for business outcomes, which mean that I must be able to use the analytics stack and be able to measure the increase in revenue per user. I must be able to actually understand the impact that it has on customer experience. So actionable business intelligence built on top of a holistic unified subscriber analytics stack is one of the key capabilities and competences that you need in order to make the transition to the next generation business model. So having said that, I wanted to show you a couple of slides, and this is actually taken from one of the customers we went to. Now, they had 5 different application stacks, all of them to do subscriber analytics. One of them did revenue assurance to identify disconnects in the value chain. One of them did fraud management. One of them was about CEM, or customer experience management. And then they also had a stack to do real-time decisioning on advertising. The funny thing that we found with this particular client is the schema would be about 80% in common. So the data sources that each of these application stacks were collecting were almost similar. The schema was 80% the same. The analytics engines had different manifestations, but they also did similar things: reconciliation, anomaly pattern recognition, social network analysis. And then you have action engines, which were doing cases, alarm management, and decisioning, and campaign management. Now, each of these areas in your businesses are probably owned by different business units, different buying centers, and they have their own solutions, right? So one of the big moves that we see with a lot of our customers is they want to move towards a single integrated stack, if possible, which actually has a set of collection tools, a set of management tools, a set of analytic engines, and an action management framework that can lead to multiple outcomes. Now, this is what we call as subscriber data monetization. Now, I would be under no illusion that this is an easy thing to do, and you may not even be doing the right thing by shooting for it overnight. This is a multi-stage process, and if you get to this outcome or goal in maybe 2 to 3 years' time, that can pay you big dividends. So let's talk about what exactly is subscriber data monetization. So if you were to ask yourself, what are the 5 things that you want to accomplish with this? Is it just a fancy term? Is it a new fad, or does it have some legs? Does it have some substance? So we talk about subscriber data monetization in 5 dimensions. One is, how do you reduce leakage? How do you decrease fraud? How do you proactively retain your customers by understanding the experience of them? How do you increase revenue per user by increasing depth and breadth of services? And also, how do you increase advertising revenue per user, especially when it comes to talking about the 2.0 business models? If you can build a common set of analytic application tools that can collect the data that would enable each of the business outcomes, can analyze it, and can act on it, that would help you reach towards this goal. So this is an example that we show to a lot of our customers as well, as if you can identify the positives in your customer data, the things that they are looking at on your VAS portal, how long are they spending on it, how long are they waiting on the call center, the browsing history that you have, the quality of service data that you have, all the negatives, the shopping carts that were abandoned, the downloads that got abandoned, the SMSs that got lost, the outages that they experienced, and then you find moments of insight about customers. So you may actually find that a customer that calls the call center for disputing a charge and going to a website to downgrade a plan has a 60% chance of churning in the next week. This is actually one of the clients found out. Correlating insights about customers across multiple channels can help you discover things about your customers that you never know about. Then what you do about it is you take action on them. You maybe send a campaign to the customer, giving him a promotion. You have a telesales outbound agent, give him a call. You may actually even send him a sorry email saying that you apologize for the outage that you had, but you act on it. Now, we had a customer in Europe who was telling me last week that the biggest issue that they had was perception that the telco was not sensitive to customer needs. So from their perspective, if they could even send an email to a client saying that they apologize for the drop calls that they had, the network non-availability that they detected, that would go a long way in making the consumer believe that the telco is actually looking out for their needs than being selfish about the business interest. So before we get into some of the case studies, I want to talk about this notion. And this is a Donald Rumsfeld term that many of you may know about, right? We call about the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns, right? Now, this is extremely applicable in the case of analytics on subscriber data. Known knowns is about things that you know what you're looking for. You are looking for leakage, disconnects between switch and mediation. You're looking for activations that were delayed by more than 2 days. You're looking for fraudulent patterns in a specific kind of a domain. You exactly know what you want. You do this day in and day out. You have KPIs, you have metrics. The second is what we call as known unknowns. So this is, you understand what's happening, but you don't know the root causes. You see that there's a high level of abandonment on the mobile commerce shopping funnel. Why is that? It's because the site is slow. It could be because the links are not intuitive. It could be because the buy button is actually not working. It needs some analysis, and we call it the known unknowns. And finally, and I believe that this is where the biggest impact could be, is the unknown unknowns. The unknown unknowns would be things that you don't know is happening with your customers. If someone is having, let's say, a Windows phone, and he has an Opera browser, he cannot download certain kinds of content. He is disappointed, frustrated. You lose the revenue. You also have an unhappy customer. So because of the explosion in devices and services and platforms, lots of things are happening with your customers, and most of these you do not understand. So if you have the ability to iteratively go through all your customer data and understand what kind of combinations are causing issues in adoption, that gives you a lot of insights about clients. So when you think about subscriber analytics in your company, think about what are the known knowns, what would be the known unknowns, and what would be the unknown unknowns. Think about where you have the biggest bang for the buck. You have to do the first, you have to do the second, and you would most likely may be tempted to skip the third, but I would suggest you do not, because we have seen examples where knowing the unknown unknowns has actually had the biggest return on investment. So the the next question as CTOs you would have is, we talked about all of this, so what capabilities do I need? As a CTO, as a CIO, do I have the set of competences needed to do subscriber data monetization effectively? So we talked about this notion of a customer sensing platform. So I don't know how many of you have used this term in your companies. I think we see a lot of people starting to use it because in telcos, you have fragmentation of customer data. You have call centers, you have e-commerce, you have mobile commerce, you have the network, you have service assurance systems, you have activation systems, and you have customer data in each of those. So customer behavior by nature of the IT landscape in telecom is fragmented. So if you want to know the holistic view of a single customer across usage, network, call center, e-commerce, it's usually pretty hard. So what we try to do with the customer sensing platform is put in place a set of services that can spread the tentacles and hooks into each part of your landscape in BSS OSs. So you have ETL servers that work in batch mode. You have deep packet inspection that would look at all IP traffic. You would have real-time event management. So if someone is making a fraudulent call, it's being abused, you may actually be able to catch it in real time if you want to. And then you have a whole bunch of engines that would work on the same data, some in streaming mode in real time, some in batch mode, and some in near real-time mode. And then you have insight and action that would look at the outputs of the streaming and analysis engines, and either they publish alarms in cases, they send emails, they send campaigns, they do whatever is needed, and all of this drives specific business outcomes. So I just want to talk a couple of minutes about Connectiva as a business itself. So we call ourselves a subscriber data monetization company. So what we do for a living is we go to telcos and we offer them specific business outcomes, and we offer that as a service. So we go and collect all your data across all the systems, we analyze it and come up with insights, and we try to monetize it as well. We're based out of New York. We have 40 customers worldwide, and these are some of the customers, and each of them has done a different set of implementations with the monetization platform. Some of them do leakage, some of them do customer experience, some of them have used it for ad revenue enhancement. So what I want to do specifically in the last 10 minutes is focus on some use cases. Some of them may be next generation use cases that I think you could find interesting. How many of you have been piloting advertising business models in your company? Does that mean you do not believe in it, or in the US, there's also a heightened level of concern on privacy, I would say, even more than possibly in parts of Asia. But having said that, though, there's a lot of people who believe that as an ISP, you know so much about what customers are doing. And if you have opt-in from your customers about the kind of sites that they go to, the things that they search, as long as you're not violating privacy laws of the state, it is essentially insight and information that advertisers will find extremely valuable.